So with the moving of people, do you think it's the insurance? Because they can still potentially get insurance. Do you think it's going to be where they cannot get insurance at all and they basically will not facilitate, and then everyone's just taking the risk, and then most people will say, I'm not willing to take that risk because I have to refund the build, and then people then stop buying in those areas. Do you think that's what will cause people to potentially just move out of these? So it'll be people-driven rather than government-driven?
I think it will be people-driven, and let's face it, lots of social movements in Australia are people-driven. They're often ground up rather than top-down. But yeah, look, I've got anecdotal evidence from just my friends that their flood insurance now is going to be unaffordable. And so they won't be able to insure themselves against an inevitable flood. So they're seriously looking at that change because they can't really afford to stay.
But who's going to buy it? That's the problem. And so they can't really afford to sell it. People get stuck in a corner then. And I know that one of my businesses is Home Buyer Academy. We have an online course for first home buyers. And one of the things that we teach is how to actually go and ask the questions that you should be asking before you buy a property. And particularly in Queensland, there's a very low level of vendor disclosure. Like vendors don't have to even give a zoning certificate to a potential buyer, whereas in New South Wales and Victoria, for instance, it's an essential document. It actually needs to be handed over. In that zoning document, which is provided by the local council, there are such things like bushfire risk, flood risk, etc., etc. At least there, if you know it's there, if you open the contract and read it, you can find that out. Whereas in Queensland, if you don't even know that you can find that information out, you don't know to ask the question, you just don't do it. Then you try to insure your house and then you find you've got a $15,000 insurance bill per annum or something.
Or you can't get insurance. And that's the thing. If you can't get insurance, then the bank won't take the risk and you can't get finance. If you can't get finance,
you lose your deposit.
Then you can't basically buy. You've only got cash buyers, and cash buyers are going to be opportunistic and saying, well, I'm going to just offer really low ball offers. And, it's really going to reprice those areas. So I think it's really, if insurers basically pull out of marketplaces, then buyers won't be able to buy, I guess. Yeah.
And this is where I think the role of government actually is. I mean, you're quite right. In Queensland, there's no obligation whatsoever to tell you that you're in a flood zone. So if you ask the real estate agent, did this house flooded, they are obliged to say yes. But if you don't know or think to ask that question, I honestly found a newspaper article in my research after the 1974 floods, which were the other big floods in Brisbane, where they said, oh, it's all right, we'll sell these houses to people in Sydney. They won't know.
They're still doing it.
Yeah, they're still doing it.